I was born in Akron, and I came of age near Cleveland, and I always loved it, but I had to leave at a certain point. And as I get older, in a funny way, I'm more aware of Cleveland being a part of me.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, when I was a teenager and early 20s and really fucked up and driving around, I really was fascinated by the way it looked, but also anyway, it was like where I felt natural. And then often people would think of Cleveland like black and white, and I always thought that was wrong. I always thought of it as a city in color. And when I was a kid coming from near Akron, the first time, which you don't see any of in my work or this room, the first time we drove in downtown Cleveland, when I'm guessing I was 6 or 7, that I rode in the car, I was just astonished by these tall buildings, which now that I live in New York seem like tiny.
Yeah. When you were embarking on this project, did you stay in neighborhoods that you knew growing up only, or did you try to go places in Cleveland that you had never been before?
In in 2008 and 2009, I made a documentary portrait of sorts, quite crude, of people in Cleveland, mostly speaking without like experts or sound people you don't hear from. So when when I was spending time with my mom, who needed family to spend some time with her, this trip I thought, these series of trips, I thought, okay, I want to shoot a lot of photos of Cleveland. And since I was a kid and teenager, I always, whether I lived in Cleveland or New York, wherever I lived, there was always this burning thing that I wanted to do creative work in Cleveland in part. And as I began shooting, it was before I knew that Spring Break and Black Mirror, I wasn't thinking about that. But I had this burning thing soon after arriving in Cleveland. I'm shooting photos of Cleveland. And initially it was kind of Cleveland, wherever I happened to go. But very quickly I had this idea that I was shooting these pictures of the city, but looking inward. And it wasn't meant to be like any sort of accurate document, but and quite quickly I did decide I wanted to go to sort of stay in certain neighborhoods that I really had some sort of emotional connection to, partly from hanging out as a kid, getting wasted and driving around, but partly just some giant feeling of empathy. Like this group of photos is kind of meant to be almost a self-portrait, me looking in,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also kind of a catalog impression. It's also like this empathetic thing about the people in these neighborhoods. There's not only any people in these photographs, but there are people living near all of these photographs.
Yeah.
And but then I was trying to see more than I saw before, even though I spent a lot of time going back over the years. And so it was mostly like trying to be in these familiar neighborhoods, but also seeing parts of them somehow I missed over several decades,
Right.
since more or less 1980. Working with Rachel Denkis, my longtime friend of about 17 years now, asking her to be the curator and work on this for spring break has been, you might want to leave the room. Cut. Awful. The worst. Never again.
Down here.
I'm now gonna knock a few pictures off the wall. Let me start over. Working with Rachel Denkis, a friend of mine for 17 years now, and a closer friend, especially the last several years, has been an incredible experience, and so much of her is in this room, and in a lot of ways it's very new to me to work to such a great degree so closely with someone, and also to start to have confidence trying to be an artist, to let someone in, and as much as possible I tried to let Rachel really do things she wanted to do, and I started to see the work we were dealing with really quite differently. There's a few photos in the room that initially I wouldn't have, I just immediately dismissed, and that now I've grown to be very fond of, but also she had so much to do with the arrangement, and it's just hard to even explain, because some of it is, anyway, it's just been an incredible experience, and this room is really our room, and I wish I were saying this all better. We could try again. To add just a little, in some ways part of the wonder of working with Rachel was to for little moments get a little past my own taste and my own biases, and I was able to see my work a little differently, and also just the opportunity of letting someone in and letting them bring their vision. So in a lot of ways, this room is really Rachel's interpretation of this whole idea of this personal interior journey, this kind of self-portrait, this kind of strange little environment, or maybe strange is this odd little environment you walk into when you're in the room. Is really a lot of it's Rachel's interpretation, but at the same time we sort of went over things. Anyway, it's been really one of the most gratifying, expansive, it's just been like one of the most wonderful experiences I've ever had.